Pedro from A&P-Reacts. I'm here today with Lara and Aliyah of Shield of Wings to talk about their latest record, debut full-length album, Unfinished, out February 11th on Elder Path Records. How are you guys doing?
Great, thanks.
Good.
It's nice to have you guys here, and it's nice to pick your brains a little bit about the sound, the record, everything that went into it. So let's start from the beginning. When did this album start to take shape for you guys, and how was the road from that point in time all the way to the finished product?
Well, first of all, thank you for having us. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. About the album, well, it's a long road. You know, the band went on a hiatus in 2012 before either of us were in the band. And James had been writing these songs or fragments of these songs from then until around 2019, the final song was polished. But as far as when the band actually started working on the album in earnest, it was probably around 2017. We got together and we listened to about 40 partial songs that James had written. And yeah, we picked 12, but ended up with 10 that we actually were able to put together for the album.
So what happened to the other two?
They were delayed until later.
Okay. So, but they're still going to see the light of day, right?
Yeah.
All right. So how was the creative process once you guys came into the band, considering that there was bits and pieces of songs already floating around? How was the creative process from that point on, and how involved were you in that process?
Well, James wrote all the songs, so we do the vocals, and then Aliyah is on keys. So I learned all the songs, and then I did demos of them before we went into the studio to record. So, but I did not have a part in writing the songs, but I love them like I did, basically.
How is the lyrical content then come in, and do you guys have the flexibility to change a little bit or ask for the songs to be tweaked a little bit in order for the lyrics to be able to fit perfectly in terms of creating the type of track that you want?
I think that there wasn't really a need for that on any of these tracks. I'm sure that's something that in the future James would probably be comfortable with us giving suggestions. But none of these tracks I felt like I needed to or wanted to change in any way. I think that they were perfect the way that they were. So, and lyrically, I think we both identify with them a lot.
I don't feel like the album is a concept album in terms of the traditional sense of a concept record, but it's definitely a theme album. There's definitely a theme that permeates throughout all 10 tracks. What do you hope to achieve with that theme? It was a little bit of you guys exercising your own demons, or you hope other people can find solace in the music that you created and the themes that you have in these songs?
Yeah, I think that these songs are all about introspective processing, self-analysis, and working through the songs helps us with that process, and hopefully it will help other people work through that process on their own as well.
When you talked earlier and you said you had 12 songs, 2 didn't make it, maybe down the road you picked these 10, what was it about these 10 that made them the perfect tracks for this record?
It is sort of that running thread through them all about that self-refinement process. And also those other 2 songs flow together with each other very well. And because we just couldn't make the time to finish them for this album, we ended up cutting them both so that they can go together on the next release.
All right, that makes sense. You guys are already thinking ahead.
Yeah.
One of the elements of this album that I thought was really interesting is that when you look at a debut record, it's normally created over a huge span of time, you know what I mean? And when you create a record over a huge span of time, you end up with songs that feel a little bit disconnected from one another, because you as a person and you as a musician, you guys grow and you morph and you evolve, and that starts to reflect on the music that you create across that period of time. So then when you sit down to listen to a debut record, it feels more like a compilation than it does an actual album that has a start, middle, and end. Having said all of that, I actually thought you guys did a wonderful job creating an album that does have a start, middle, and end. So how you're able to bring a record that had this huge amount of time in between the start and the end and still make it feel like you guys actually sat down together and say, okay, we're going to make this album next week. You know what I mean?
Well, I think that James as a songwriter has a lot of kind of integral inspirations and influences. So I think that's why a lot of the songs, even though they have different influences of like style and genre, I don't think that any of them were drastically different from each other or sounded like two different albums in any way. Just because I think he has a lot of those really mainstay elements that he incorporates into all the songs. And it's also a reflection of who he and we are.
Yeah, and I think his orchestral composition style, he did write a lot of the orchestrations around the same time, and that kind of allows everything to flow together a lot better.
It gives it that red line all the way through.
Yeah.
I noticed when I was listening to this album that there are some folk elements in the soundscape, and not only in the soundscape, but then the impact that that soundscape has to the atmosphere of the songs. I absolutely love it. All right. So my question here is, are we going to get more of that? Because I really think that you guys have a little bit of this Druid vibe in terms of how you put everything together, from the videos to the music, and those folk elements fit in like perfectly into the sound and into the band. Are we going to get a lot more of that?
I think it's gonna be a consistent flavor to our music. You know, it's part of who we are. It's part of our influences. And yeah, I don't think we're gonna become a full-on folk metal band at any point, but yeah, I think those elements will always be there.
Would you guys be comfortable with bringing them in, still keeping the symphonic side, and perhaps creating a little bit of your own DNA and something that would allow you to stand out as not just another symphonic metal band, but a symphonic metal band that has that dark folk? You could even go as far as going into goth style sound that would fit really well and allow you to be a little bit on your own. Is that something that you guys would be interested in?
I think the sound, how it develops in the future is still yet to be seen, you know, and I think that we're always going to have these core parts of ourselves that show into the music. But yeah, I guess it's just a thing we'll have to wait and see for the future, where the music goes that is not yet written.
Well, I'm excited about what the future holds, because this album really piqued my interest. Like, you guys created a very solid record from start to finish, and you left some nuggets there, some pieces of what the future could be, and the future would be very exciting if you guys continued to go down this path. And one of the things that I thought was really exciting about this record was the overall orchestrations and how well they blended with the sound of the album. I know at times it felt a little bit overpowering. I mentioned that in a video before. But how do you guys look at the orchestrations on this record? What do you feel the impact that the orchestrations had in the overall atmosphere of the album?
The orchestrations are central to our sound. I mean, when we went into the mixing room, what we prioritized first, we wanted to prioritize Lara's vocals first, and orchestration second. I mean, they're that important to the sound. Really, I think we approach our music almost more like a film score, like telling a story with the orchestrations. And so, yeah, they're absolutely integral to our sound, central.
It's the DNA of the band, you feel? The vocals and the orchestrations, is that the DNA of the band?
I think so. Do you think so?
Yeah, I would say the orchestrations predominantly, and that is the heart and soul of the band.
I would say both of your vocals is the heart and soul of the band. I was like mesmerized from song into song to another track. Like, the way you guys worked the vocal tracks was really interesting. Some of the harsh vocals were really interesting, really well done. Now, how do you approach the overall vocals on this record? Did you guys have a game plan, or was things a little bit more organic in terms of what feels right for the track?
I think we knew from the beginning which parts of the songs were going to be clean vocals and which parts were going to be harsh vocals early on. Yeah, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, when we went into the vocal tracking, I had the opportunity to write the harmonies. I think one thing that's really great about our vocal dynamic together is we have such different tones and different voices, and so I think that we do work really well together, even like with my little harmonies on top of hers. It just enhances the experience, makes it a little more dynamic. But yeah, it was all pretty much determined ahead of time. The only thing that wasn't determined ahead of time was, oh, which parts have vocal, which parts have harmonies. And that was something that I kind of worked out on my own, like in the car. I was just singing along. I would be like, oh, do I like this? Do we like that? And then when we went to record them, some of those parts got cut, some of the parts needed to be added. So I don't know. Is that too complicated of an answer?
No, it's exactly the answer that I was looking for. And continuing on the topic of vocals, I want to go into one of my favorite songs of the album, which is "Breathing." I thought that song is just phenomenal, like sound-wise, vocally wise. I love the harsh vocals, by the way. I thought the harsh vocals were phenomenal on that track. How did that song come together?
I mean, what exactly are you asking about on that process?
Vocally, how did you guys decide to approach? Because I thought vocally that song is very different from everything else you have on the album. It's predominantly harsh vocals on that track, which is not something that we're going to see throughout the entire album. So what made that song fit that style and not, for example, another track on the record?
I think it has to do with the song underlying the vocals. There's certain parts it just feels right to have harsh vocals, and it feels right to have a clean vocal. And so I think it was just the way that song was written, those verses needed to be harsh vocals. And so we don't really go into a song with a plan like, oh, we want it to be like this particular genre, or we want it to sound like something predetermined. It kind of is an organic process and is based off of just the song has a life of its own in a way.
What have you discovered about yourselves as musicians during the process of putting this record together?
I think a lot. It's been a really fun journey, and I think one thing I learned just from doing the vocals, learning the songs and recording them is the songs are a bit different vocally from the way I think I would normally sing, and doing a sort of different style that was more upbeat and fast-paced, really epic songs was a new experience and challenge for me at times. So, but yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I think I learned that I can possibly be a bit more diverse vocally than I thought, and everything is a learning process. Always learning and trying new things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
What about for you?
Yeah, I mean, I've been singing for so long, and I never run out of things to learn. You're never a master entirely of your craft. So I think that this album really allowed me to, harsh vocals are sort of a newer thing for me. Like in the last 5 years or so, I branched off into doing harsh vocals. So this album was a great opportunity for me to learn how to harness that and harness my shadow, as it were, and learn how to project those and make them effective.
One last question for you guys. You're in this band together. A band is almost like a mini family of sorts, and going through the process of making an album brings everybody even closer together. So when you look at each other, what do you see in each other that really complements what you're doing on the individual basis and what you bring into the table as far as the band is concerned?
Well, I think that each of us has just this really deep passion for the music as a whole. And for me personally, I haven't really experienced that many things in my life that I've cared about this much. So yeah, I mean, I think that we've all became really close friends, and we are sort of like a family, you know, so we all just have this deep love for the music, and I think that really shows.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, like I mentioned before, on a more technical side, like our vocal styles are different, and we can learn a lot from each other in that way. I know I've learned a lot from Lara, just listening to her and how she sang things differently than I would have sung them. So, and I think that we can just I look forward to growing together as a band.
Well, as a listener, I look forward to seeing you guys growing together as a band and what the next records will bring, because this album was really exciting. It didn't sound to me like a debut record, a full-length debut album. It sounded like something that it was like a sophomore record or along those lines, because like I said, it felt together, it felt as one, and you normally don't see that on a first kind of album, because you have that time period that really allows you to change as a musician and then reflect that on the music that you create. So this album surprised me on the positive note. You guys have an incredible record. Congratulations to both of you and to the rest of the band. And thank you very much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Thank you so much, Pedro. It means a lot. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. You guys are the greatest. See ya.
See you.